I've repeated this like 20 times now. Are you like deaf? I'm being
cite
very
it?
clear on this. Can you cite any part of the report where he claims that there was no chemical weapons attack?
Bro, he.
How you doing?
All right. Good. How are you?
Doing wonderfully. All right. No reason to continue with the pleasantries. Are you ready to get into it?
Yeah. I mean, as you know, there's a lot to get into. So, I guess I'll just start off by saying, for the audience who doesn't know me, I'm a relatively new streamer, political streamer. I've been doing this for about a year and a half. My name's Jackson, and I'm not a journalist, but I've been following this story very closely. And I was frustrated by some of the things that you said on your stream regarding both the general findings of the OPCW investigators and of my own views on the subject. So that's why we're here. We're going to talk about it.
I'm sure. All right, so a little bit of a preamble before we get into this. I suspect this is probably going to be a waste of time because I have a lot of experience debating Holocaust deniers. I know that generally speaking, when people form their opinions based on conspiracism, it's usually not because they actually have a vested interest in the facts. It's usually because they have like a set of biases that existed beforehand, and they'll engage in like selective reasoning to adopt any beliefs that they can use to post hoc justify those, pre-existing biases. I guess we'll see how much of a waste of time this turns out to be. So I wasn't that familiar with the specifics on this incident until I guess last night because
I saw you're doing some late night Wikipedia prepping, right?
yeah, I'm not familiar with like every conspiracy theory out there. I also don't know much about like Alex Jones' claims about Sandy Hook. Sometimes you gotta like pack that stuff in. It's also like completely irrelevant to anything a progressive should care about. So, but I looked into it, and the information in favor of my side was so overwhelming and so compelling that by the end of this conversation, I legitimately believe that you're continuing to disagree with me can be attributed only to mental illness or willful dishonesty. I actually believe, like, at first I thought, like, oh god, this is going to be like a really confusing and granular issue where like it's going to be really tough to understand. But the more I looked into it, I realized that this is such an unbelievably difficult issue to contest the general narrative on that like, wow, But again, like I'm coming into this with a little bit of bias because I've interacted with a lot of members of the broader like gray zone Jimmy Dore community, and I have, let's say, like a negative opinion of them, you know? But I don't know. Maybe you'll change my mind. We've, had some pleasant interactions in the past, so I guess I'm open to that being adjusted. So you wanted to talk about the OPCW report, the chemical weapons attack on Duma, or alleged chemical weapons attack, and all of the implications and possibilities theretofore. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, we don't have to talk about anything besides that. Do you mind if I give some initial context, though? This isn't something my audience is that familiar with. I want to explain, like, the broader context, if possible.
Happily, go for it.
Yeah. Okay. So, Bashar al-Assad is a brutal, tyrannical, far-right dictator, and he has, over the course of the Syrian civil war, engaged in many acts of barbarity against his own population, both political and military, which has led to the death of nearly 100,000 civilians attributed to him, the displacement of millions. There have been dozens of chemical weapons attacks that have been attributed to him and verified by a number of international organizations designed to engage in peacekeeping and find facts. So the to fake all of like those chemical weapons attacks beforehand would be like to assemble the evidence in such a way as to form dozens of false flags that tricked so many orgs internationally. It's like unfathomable. So there's a history of the use of chemical weapons by Assad's regime against civilian.
Wait. Vaush. Sorry, before you continue, it's just
Sure.
important to get some of the facts right. And by the way, I know you labeled me as an Assad defender on your stream title. I have no problem saying that Assad is a brutal dictator, and I do not defend him. What I'm here to do is defend the whistleblowers and the investigators who were sent on behalf of the OPCW into Duma. But what I will say is that you said a bunch of international groups and activist groups had confirmed all of these previous chemical weapons attacks. That's a pretty broad statement. This is actually the first time that the OPCW has ever been able to go on the ground in Syria and investigate a chemical weapons attack. And that's why this is so important. So all other previous chemical weapons attacks have usually had key evidence that was passed through these rebel groups, these Saudi-funded al-Qaeda-linked rebel groups like Jaish al-Islam. And in addition to that, a lot of these previous attacks have been contested.
Right. So we're beginning already. So first of all, you can't really claim that you're not defending Assad when you're making the claim that numerous and highly credentialed accusations against Assad with regards to him engaging in crimes against humanity are fake. Like, that'd be saying, like, I'm not defending Hitler. I just think that Auschwitz-Birkenau was a POW camp, and the deaths there were the product of, like, Allied bombing train lines so they couldn't get food there. I mean, this isn't really what we're here to talk about. If you're one, I encourage, like, any audience member to take a look at human rights violations during the Syrian civil war. There are estimations on the use of chemical weapons that range from, I believe, 32 is the conservative number that most people use. There are some orgs that claim that it's in the hundreds. There have been many international organizations that have directly observed the use of torture, unlawful killing, the bombing of hospitals, the indiscriminate shelling of civilian areas, collective punishment, the slaughter of political dissidents, the deprivation of food and water, the destruction of key infrastructure.
So we agree Assad is not a good guy. So we agree.
Wait, hold on. So you can't... So wait, really quickly, you can't say like...
I just want to make sure we're in agreement on that.
Yeah, Assad is a bad guy. It's just, you were just saying like, actually, these things haven't been confirmed before, and they were all passed through Syrian rebel info, which isn't true.
Not the things that you just said. I said that a lot of the key chemical weapons attacks have been contested by very reputable sources. For example, one of the most notable that the U.S. had indicated was a major chemical weapons attack. The alleged chemical weapons attack in Ghouta was actually, it was contested by a number of individuals. It was contested by Seymour Hersh in the London Review of Books. And in addition to that, actually Barack Obama confirmed that these reports were false of an alleged chemical weapons attack when James Clapper told him that the evidence of the alleged Syrian chemical gas attack in Ghouta was not a slam dunk and they shouldn't act upon it. So saying that evidence is not a slam dunk and should not be acted upon is not the same as repudiating the existence of those attacks to begin with. Additionally, this is one of the reasons why conspiracy is really difficult to... Wait, please. Hold on. You allege that Assad, without a doubt, perpetrated all of these attacks.
No, I did not. Wait, I did not say that, actually. What I said is that there is wait, hold on. What I actually said was that there is undeniable evidence which has been corroborated across many international peacekeeping organizations that the use of chemical weapons has taken place in Syria, the majority of which has been attributed to Assad. For many of these chemical weapons attacks, it is logistically impossible to determine who actually did it. We don't always have the ability to factually determine the exact circumstances that led to chlorine gas contamination in an area. However, a lot of these are very heavily, inferentially, attributable to Assad. I think about 95% of them tend to be.
I'll also add, before we continue on here, that a lot of these key organizations that you are citing, like Human Rights Watch, for example, I'd imagine is one of the ones that you'd cite for, claiming that there are all these chemical weapons attacks. They all differ in how many actually took place based on the evidence and the validity of it. So some of these groups allege that there were over 300 chemical weapons attacks that took place. Some allege that there are only 30, and even in those 30, there's still huge problems with the amounts that, or the evidence that's used to suffice the claim that Assad was responsible. So I think we can both, argue our heads off on these previous chemical weapons attacks, but what we came here to talk about today was the OPCW cover-up scandal in Duma.
A cover-up scandal is a pretty strong term. But anyway, I just think it's interesting that when pointing out the fact that there was a tremendous amount of evidence of previous chemical weapons usage by Assad in Syria, you instantly leapt to his defense. And hold on. It's always alleged because he denies all of it. But you instantly... Wait, please.
True.
It's just...
Then it's not alleged.
It's interesting that you don't call yourself an Assad defender when your apparent defense of the regime extends beyond the one incident where we have whistleblowers from the OPCW, but extends broadly to the entire range of information we have on the subject. Again, this isn't what the debate is supposed to be about, and conspiracism is always like a rabbit hole because, again, I've argued with Holocaust deniers. Did you know there was one investigation from the Red Cross that found that there were no deaths at this camp back in 1933? That's curious. Like, you can go down it forever, but if you want, you can take a look at the use of chemical weapons in the Syrian civil war. I'll put it this way, okay? The use of chemical weapons has been so significant and so extensive and so well documented that to falsely attribute all these instances to Assad would require a greater false flag operation than literally any other effort in human history. I would believe that as readily as I would believe that the existence of Auschwitz-Birkenau was faked by like Jewish American journalists who like were planted at the scene and took photos of like a summer camp and put like iron rod fences around it to convince Westerners that the Holocaust happened. Like you can look at the evidence if you want, but again, we can only like go into so much. So your claim, oh God, we haven't even gotten to what happened. Okay, so on April 7th in 2018 in the city of Douma, which is about 10 kilometers away from Damascus, there was a Syrian rebel occupation of the city. This occupation had taken place for about 6 years at that time. The city was under heavy shelling at the time from Assad's forces. And then the following things allegedly took place. Two Mi-8 helicopters, which are used by the Syrian Air Force, dropped chemical weapon payloads on a neighborhood in the city of Douma, releasing chlorine gas, which killed, I think, yes, allegedly, which killed about 32 people, led to the displacement and injury of hundreds or more, which were then, they went off to hospitals and what have you. And
keep in mind that the key investigators who are on the ground in Douma, they can prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the helicopters that were claimed to have been seen did not drop any of the cylinders that were seen on the sites.
So what you're saying is incorrect, but we haven't gotten to that yet, okay? We'll get to that, don't worry. So anyway, here is the evidence, I suppose, on my side. So here's what would have needed to have taken place. Wait, is your suggestion that this was a false flag? The chlorine bombs were dropped by U.S. or Syrian rebel forces? Or is your contention the same as the Russian and Syrian governments that there was no chlorine gas released?
There's no definitive, outline as to what actually took place yet because the investigation was stopped. The key fact-finding mission team members were forced out of the team, and they weren't able to complete their investigation. So if you read in the actual...
This is also incorrect, but I'm asking you, was it a false flag or did it not happen?
Listen, Vaush, you're the one who spent all last night on Wikipedia reading about this.
We haven't gotten to the actual facts of the case yet. I'm asking you...
Let me finish my point. Let me finish my point. If you read the first draft report, you will find that they left open multiple different avenues or opportunities as to what could have actually taken place in Douma and what was responsible for the alleged attack.
Okay, so the argument by the Russian and Syrian governments was that there was no attack, that chlorine gas was never released in that area. Is that an opinion that you share? Or do you believe that the Russian and Syrian governments are lying or otherwise working off incomplete information?
According to the investigators who are on the ground, there is the potential that there was a non-chemical related attack.
A non-chemical related attack? Like bombs being dropped?
There were over 40 people who died, correct?
That is correct. So were like bombs were dropped or like what kind of attack? The city was being shelled at the time. Are you saying that it was like artillery fire?
I'm not. They weren't able to identify that. You can see very clearly, though, that the people who were filmed at the scene had foam protruding from their mouths, but they weren't able to identify that. And I'm not going to act like me being some YouTube streamer has any more information on the subject than what they have provided, but they did leave open the avenue that there was a non-chemical related attack, and they also said they weren't able to find any sort of outlying evidence that suggested that there was a chemical attack that wasn't sarin or chlorine.
So the term leaving open the avenue in this case means nothing. When it comes to investigations like this, especially ones that are done weeks after the actual attack, it's almost impossible to deductively prove anything. The most you can do is use evidence to inferentially try to arrive at the most likely conclusion, which, of course, the final report from the OPCW did. Wait, hold on. Wait, please.
Well,
the final
report. I'm going to refute that. You made a claim, so I'm going to refute that.
Okay.
if you believe that there's no evidence to suggest any of this stuff, and considering it's all open avenues, then we're left in the dust, and who knows what's going to happen? Who know what happened?
I didn't say what you're saying.
Why don't you? Okay, restate what you just said then.
I said that when it comes to investigations on the ground that are done weeks after an alleged chemical weapons attack, it's very rarely possible to definitively prove anything. The statement leaves open the possibility or leaves room for doesn't really mean much in this case, because potentially they could leave room for anything. That's language that's used similarly in many such investigations.
It doesn't, because they had indicated that it was highly unlikely that chlorine was responsible for this attack. It was found there was like chlorinated.
We haven't gotten to the specific claims yet. I promise you that you'll regret making these statements later. Wait, hold on.
So if you believe that
I just asking you if you think it was a false flag or not.
I already answered that question, Vaush.
Wait, no.
Literally
The problem is that people in your political camp aren't just saying, we have questions. There have been strong, definitive. Wait, hold on, please. There have been strong, definitive claims made by the Syrian and Russian governments that there was no chemical weapons attack. Do you share their opinion that there was no chemical weapons attack?
There's no evidence of a chlorine gas attack. They left open the opportunity that there was a non-chemical related attack.
By Assad's forces, or?
They didn't insinuate who could have been responsible for the open avenue of a non-chemical related attack. The investigation was compromised by OPCW executives before that could have taken place.
Okay, we'll get to that. Don't worry. Okay, so your argument then is that there was no chemical weapons attack, but there may have been a conventional attack.
No, that's not what I just said.
Okay. Would you mind repeating? Because I need you to commit to a position. Because if your position here is we have questions, then I don't even have a position to attack, and I'll just list out all the evidence of you being wrong.
This is the third time I'm going to have to answer this question. The inspectors told us that there was no chlorine gas release that caused this attack.
In which report?
That's what the evidence showed us. The first interim report.
The
first interim draft report.
The draft report. You mean the unreleased report that was not representative of the entire opinion of all those present? The one that was drafted by the, Investigator B, the Alex character? The one that was later responded to in internal emails that weren't released by WikiLeaks until 6 months afterwards that proved there were scientific reasons why many of the claims made in the draft report were contested? That report?
We'll get to the integrity of Inspector B, and I know you have questions about that, but let's save that for later because you're jumping around right now. So,
hold on. I'm not the one. I'm not trying to talk about any inspectors yet. I was just asking if you thought there was a false flag attack, because I need to know which wrong approach to address first.
For the fourth time, what I'm saying is there's no evidence that chlorine gas was released from the cylinders, which is what the U.S. alleged was responsible for this attack, okay? So you got that, right?
Not just the U.S., of course. Also the OPCW in their report, the organization we're talking about, they allege that.
In the final report, but the OPCW investigators who actually were on the ground in Duma investigating this, they found no evidence that chlorine gas was released from the cylinders, okay?
And from where do you know that exactly?
From the report that they did.
Really? Because
yes,
because the person that you're referring to, this Alex, the one who wrote the report.
The integrity of the inspectors later. I know you want to jump around.
I'm not jumping around. You're making claims about these reports, and I'm addressing the claims you're making.
I want to answer your question, Vaush. I want to answer your question because this is the fourth time I've had to repeat myself. So that's the first part of my answer. The second part of my answer is that they left open the avenue that there was a non-chemical related attack that took place. They didn't allege who was potentially responsible for that potential non-chemical related attack. And they also left open the potential for there to have been a chemical attack with a chemical that was not identified on the scene, though they noted that that was highly unlikely.
So your argument, the reason why you and people who agree with you call people like U.S. State Department shills who want war with Syria is because you have the incredibly bold position that there was a possibility that some other explanation may have been left open, in an interim draft report that was later contested through internal documentation that was kept secret from the public for months and then released in full and responded to in a final report. Your claim is that in an initial draft, there was a possibility of there maybe being another case. You don't have any stronger claims to make than that. No reason at all why there were canisters, damage consistent with the drop of those canisters, corpses with foam coming out of their mouths. We can talk about the corrosion of the metal or the hydrochloric acid or the hypochloric acid that was present at the location, which is consistent with moisture combining with chlorine gas. Like, you have no other claims?
If you want to throw out stuff really quickly without actually going through each point, I can do the same. I can do the exact same thing. I won't give you any opportunities.
But I'm asking you. Okay, so let's just go over it then. Okay, so let's go over why we think these things.
Before we do, there's one last thing I want to say, because you continue to say that the inspectors, the original report, the original draft report, as you cite it, and you try to insinuate that because it's a draft, it's not valid, even though it was peer reviewed by 4 other team members. And also, none of the points have been refuted by OPCW executives in that draft report. By OPCW executives, you think they've been refuted?
In internal email documentations, they responded to claims made in that draft document, and the final one included many passages which addressed concerns levied by the draft report you're referring to. Yes.
Really? I would love to see that.
By the way, reviewed doesn't mean accepted. That's why it wasn't published.
No, it wasn't published because they omitted key information to sharply deviate from the findings of the initial inspectors who were on the ground in Duma.
By initial inspectors, are you referring to Alex? Because Alex never left his command post in Damascus. Why do you keep referring to all the people on the ground in Duma as the people who wrote that report? Alex wrote that report.
Alex wrote the report. There was a fact-finding mission team, though, that collected all of the information for that. And we will get to the integrity of the inspectors later if you want to, because I think that's worth discussing. Or we can discuss that right now if you'd like to.
No, we haven't even gotten to like the... So when we're talking about conspiracies, I find that it's actually better before digging into the conspiratorial elements to actually talk about possible alternatives, okay? So you don't seem to be willing to commit to the Syrian and Russian narrative on this particular issue, which is fine. I mean, you're not like employed by Syria or Russia that I know of. But we can talk about the likelihood of other possible explanations for what took place there. So if it was a non-chlorine-based attack, why were there 32 or so corpses found with death markers representative of death by chlorine poisoning? The foaming at the mouth is caused by the acids that form when chlorine gas comes into contact with moisture, like moisture in our throats and in our eyes. That's how they died. I can't show these pictures or videos on stream because they're highly graphic, but there are videos taken at the time and afterwards of corpses piled up in these buildings with death markers that are directly indicative of the causes of chlorine gas poisoning. Were they killed by shells and then somebody like spray canned foam in their mouth, or like enough to convincingly like trick medic crisis teams, or how would that have happened?
So you just alleged that the symptoms of the victims were indicative of a chlorine attack. Is that what you're saying?
For the corpses, the fact that they were foaming at the mouth, that is absolutely consistent with the symptoms of chlorine death and not like trauma or like shelling. Yes. No, being shelled will not cause that.
So that would be consistent with a mass chlorine attack, like what we've seen happen in previous world wars, where you have huge clouds of chlorine that are consuming regions of war for hours on end. It's not indicative of what took place here. And according to the toxicologists who are again on the ground in Duma and who met with some of the leading international experts on toxicology, one of which was from a NATO state, they found that with respect to the consistency of the observed and reported symptoms of the alleged victims with possible exposure to chlorine gas or similar, the experts were conclusive in their statements that there was no correlation between symptoms and chlorine exposure. In particular, they stated that the onset of excessive frothing as a result of pulmonary edema observed in photos and reported by witnesses would not occur in the short time period between reported occurrence of the alleged incident and the time the videos were recorded.
Which is interesting because it was later indicated in criticisms of the report that came from my side of the aisle, from people who do believe that this actually took place, that no, those conditions can actually take place in as little as 30 minutes, depending on the concentration of the chlorine gas in the air. Now, conveniently for my narrative, these bombs were dropped in enclosed areas. These weren't dropped into the street. They were dropped into a roof in a bedroom, meaning that the chlorine gas exposure was in a highly concentrated area. Additionally, there was also witness testimony of a green cloud shortly after the dropping of these canisters. Now, highly dispersed chlorine gas wouldn't produce visual effects like that, but highly concentrated chlorine gas would. There are witness testimonies of people dropping dead within seconds of the drop of the bomb. This is consistent with a highly pressurized and highly contained release of chlorine gas into an enclosed space.
What those sources are those the white helmets?
No, those are not the white helmets.
Who are they? Who are those sources?
If you'd like, you can give me a moment and I can look up the specifics of the witness testimony.
Okay. Also, I mean, I think it's important to point out that the toxicologists who were reporting on this, they did rule out chlorine gas, as I just said. Do you happen to know more than the international leading toxicologists who are reporting on this?
This is another interesting element of conspiracism that I like. Your claim is that the OPCW reports are flawed. That's the entire claim you're making here. My claim is that the toxicologists were incorrect. You're making the inaccurate assumption that the only ways in which the OPCW could possibly be incorrect are against the narrative of the Syrian government. I disagree. I think that in this instance, I think that the reports of the toxicologists... Hold on.
I'm alleging... No, you just said that I said something.
Wait, I'm sorry. Are you not alleging that the OPCW final report is inaccurate?
I'm alleging that the final report omitted key information that the toxicologists, engineering and ballistic experts, and the fact-finding mission team members found on the ground. And by omitting that information, they sharply deviated from the findings of the initial investigators who were on the ground and used it to paint an outcome that insinuated that a chlorine gas attack was responsible, when the toxicologists, as I just read you, said that it was not possible.
So, yes, you do believe that the OPCW report was inaccurate. I believe that there are inaccuracies also present. So hold on again. Hold on. This is the selective credibility that I'm contesting right now. Essentially, when information lines up in a way that's inconvenient to your narrative, you can explain it away with internal bias, meddling, corruption, or with censorship. But when I say... Wait, can you wait? Yeah, I know you're upset, but I need you to just hold on and take it one claim. So you keep saying international experts. So were all of the people who found that there was a chlorine weapons attack. The OPCW was not the only organization at the ground on Duna, by the way, nor the other locations of chemical weapons attacks in Syria. You keep referring to international experts, buddy. The international experts have already agreed this was a chemical weapons attack. If you're going to defer towards international expertise, the world already agrees with me. So you're not going to have to rely on that, all right? Let's just take this a second at a time, okay?
Vaush, the US, the UK, and France all pointed to the OPCW to lead the investigation into this, and the investigation omitted key information that was found by...
You keep repeating this, but we haven't even gotten to that yet, and what you're saying is also inaccurate, okay? If you remember, the question that I initially asked you was, how did all of these corpses with foam at their mouths show up with deaths that are consistent with the effects of chlorine gas exposure?
They're not. I just read to you that the reported this is according to the toxicologist, that the observed and reported symptoms of the alleged victims with possible exposure to chlorine gas or similar, the experts were conclusive in their statements that there was no correlation between the symptoms and chlorine exposure. So I don't know why you keep alleging that they were consistent with chlorine exposure when the world's leading toxicologists have said that they are not.
What else happened to them?
They didn't identify it because they were forced off of the fact.
This is not correct. So let's break down some possibilities here. So there's a claim then that an alternate source of death might have been the product, like something else might have killed them. What could have killed them that would have led to there being foam on their mouths and to demonstrate all of the symptoms of pulmonary edema? Keep in mind, the testimony of the toxicologists was not that these deaths' symptoms were inconsistent with chlorine gas, only that the symptoms demonstrated rapidly compared to what is expected with heavy exposure to chlorine gas. So the symptoms are consistent, only not within the time scale that toxicologists defined. This has been contested by other people since. For example, well, wait, please, Professor. Wait, no, wait. I need to finish the claim. You can address the claim when it's done. Okay.
You just made a statement. I'm going to refute that. So you said,
no.
Due to the time frame, I'm going to repeat the toxicologist, findings one more time for you here. They said, and I'm not cherry picking here. They said that the experts were conclusive in their statements that there was no correlation between symptoms and chlorine exposure. Okay, that's the sentence.
Okay, so we're familiar with the minutes of this meeting. We've already heard you. Thank you. So the reason why, if you've actually read the document, I have it in front of me, by the way. If you've actually read the document, okay, you will find that the reason why they did so was because the onset of the pulmonary edema was done too rapidly, okay? It's not because the frothing at the mouth wasn't consistent with the effects of a chlorine gas exposure. Additionally, here's another quote from the article that I find wait, please. The experts were also of the opinion that it was highly unlikely that victims would have gathered in piles at the center of the respective apartments at such a short distance from an escape from any toxic chlorine gas to cleaner air. So what's interesting is the toxicology report said, dude, why would people be piled into like a super like close together internal contained environment with minimal ventilation when these bombs were dropped on apartment buildings, the chlorine gas load being dispersed in a highly contained area? This wasn't a formal report. These were minutes from one meeting. The reason why these were leaked is because this is one specific set of findings, not even findings necessarily, but of assessment that disagreed with the overwhelming plurality of evidence found elsewise. This is only one point of a broader question that I'm asking you, by the way, which is how the hell are there corpses with frothing mouths at this site if there was no chemical weapon attack? Chlorine gas there is evidence for, which we'll get to later, but other nerve agents there isn't evidence for. What else would have caused it?
As the dissenting inspectors and whistleblowers noted, they would have been able to potentially identify what was responsible for this had the investigation not been compromised. And also,
okay, your argument is you have no other explanation.
You just said like 5 different things, so let me continue here. You said that this was a poorly ventilated building. There was a massive gaping hole on the top of the roof. There was open windows, and there was multiple avenues for people to leave the building and go out into the open where they would have been able to have fresh air. The toxicologist pointed out that it didn't make sense.
The city was under siege.
In the short time period between the reported occurrence of the alleged incident and the time that the videos were recorded, that they would have had that onset of excessive frothing or pulmonary edema.
Jackson, the city was under siege. You're in an apartment building, huddled for your life, and you hear your roof. Wait, please hold on. And you hear your roof get blown out. Is your response to run out into the street?
A hole in the roof too.
It wasn't a one-story building. There were people in the lower floors of the building. All they heard was the roof get blown out. Chlorine gas is heavier than air. It sank to the lower levels, which is where most of the corpses were found.
It was not a highly contained building. There were open windows. There was very clear avenues for people to leave the building, such as doors, and there was a gaping hole in the top of the building, which is where in the cylinder was found. Okay, so in one of the cases,
gas sinks. So wait, I get this sometimes when I argue with like wannabe Jackie Chans who think they could kung fu their way out of like assault. If you're in Syria and your city has been under shelling from the government for a long time now, you hear your roof get blown out, people are screaming, dust is billowing down, and all of a sudden people start choking. Is it dust? Is it gas? You don't know, but you do know you're not supposed to go outside during a fucking shelling. Now, normally, when it comes to chlorine gas attacks, you head to higher ground. but the gas was coming from the higher ground. This was a worst case scenario for the people in the lower levels of that building. That's where the corpses were found.
No evidence that chlorine was released from those cylinders, though. So
wait, that's another claim that you're making. Wait, please. You're jumping to another claim. My claim is that my story is consistent with an explanation as to why these people would have experienced the effects of pulmonary edema quickly, because they were in a contained environment and because they died in an area where there would have been minimal ventilation because chlorine gas travels downwards. It's heavier than air. The claim that no chlorine gas has been found is a separate claim that we'll address shortly.
All right, I'll let you finish. Is that all?
Yeah.
For that point.
Yeah.
Okay.
So how do these corpses get foam on their mouths?
So you continue to say that this was a contained environment. It wasn't. There were open windows. There
by the standards of chlorine gas, this is a contained environment. Yes.
I just let you talk, and granted, I've let you talk a lot in this stream so far. So please let me just talk. There was open windows. There was a gaping hole in the roof. There was doors that they could have exited. And again, the toxicologists pointed out the fact that it would not make any sense, first of all, that there was a correlation between the symptoms and chlorine exposure. In addition to that, they said that the onset of excessive frothing as a result of pulmonary edema observed in photos would not occur in the short period of time reported in the reported occurrence. So unless you can did the toxicologists know the environment? Unless you can concoct a situation in which these victims were just running around in the building and somehow the windows were, I mean, there's no evidence that the windows
chlorine
were shut.
Gas sinks. Wait, okay, so keep in mind, windows being open is not sufficient ventilation to survive a chlorine gas attack.
Chlorine gas exited those cylinders.
Okay. So hold on, that's a separate claim. So if chlorine gas was released from those cylinders, the concentration of that gas in the lower levels of that building would have been sufficient to produce the effects of pulmonary edema extremely quickly. Do you know for a fact that these toxicologists were familiar with the limited environment in which this gas was exposed? Probably not, because they specifically say in these minutes that they found it highly unlikely the victims would have engaged in the behavior that they then died engaging in. So it seems like the only thing the toxicologists knew were a couple of biomedical pieces of information on the corpses, not the broader context in which they were killed. Additionally, if you want to Google it, evidence exists of pulmonary edema taking place near instantly in severe concentrations of chlorine gas. Since chlorine gas was concentrated in the building, assuming that it was... Wait, hold on. Wait, please. Assuming that it was released at all, considering that it was contained within the building and that it's heavier than air and that the death took place in the lower level, this is a very strong indication that if chlorine gas was released, it would have been able to be released in amounts significant enough to cause pulmonary edema. In short, these toxicologists were working off limited information, which is why this isn't a report. These are minutes from a preliminary meeting.
Vaush, for the frothing to develop, they would have had to been there for a prolonged period of time.
Incorrect.
Based on the concentration of chlorine. The sources that you're citing referring to instantaneous deaths from chlorine exposure are in world wars where you have massive clouds of chlorine consuming open war fields and sinking into trenches where troops are...
Wait, aren't trenches open air? They have open roofs and trenches.
We had open roofs, open windows, and two cylinders.
They have open windows and trenches, dog. There's not even a roof on those. And they still got pulmonary edema in seconds? That's crazy.
Did not be chlorine. If you can prove to me how the inspectors, if you can prove to me that chlorine came from those cylinders, this would be a different scenario.
We haven't gotten to that claim yet. The claim you're making right now is that if chlorine was released, it's... Wait, please. We can't... Normally, when I talk with guys like you, they start to realize they're out of their depth, and they don't stop talking because they know every additional point is another nail in their grave, okay? We need to get point by point. We're like 1/20th of the way through this. I did way too much reading on this to let you get away with only being owned on 1/10 of the points that I read up on, okay?
You read Wikipedia, Bellingcat, and relied on Patrick Hillsman in your DMs
then you should have a very easy time. By the way, another thing Holocaust deniers like to say, oh yeah, you got your information from the ADL and from ex-Goldberg historian? Okay. why don't we take a look at the evidence available rather than just assuming that it's not valid based on the preconceived biases you have about their agents, okay? If I wanted to, I could just scream that you're an RT agent. I'm trying to actually own you based on evidence. Let's get to this point.
You're wrong that pulmonary edema would develop quickly based on the circumstances.
So, again, and this is the final thing that I'll say. Assuming chlorine gas was released, and we'll get to that, the evidence available is consistent with the development of pulmonary edema quickly because the toxicology minutes report, again, not a report, it was just minutes like that were cataloged. This wasn't like a formalized report that was verified. These are literally just minutes from a meeting from people who didn't have a full understanding of the info, as made evident by the minutes where they indicated that they couldn't believe people would engage in the behavior their corpses were found engaging in. They claimed that pulmonary edema couldn't be set in that quickly, but the evidence shows that there's actually plenty of circumstantial, like, surrounding conditions which may have led to it developing much faster than 2 to 4 hours, possibly within 30 minutes. So with all that said, can we get back to the original question? How did corpses with foaming mouths get there?
I would love to get back to that original question, but premise...
You didn't even answer it.
Your premise that there would be a rapid onset of pulmonary edema is completely reliant upon the concentration of chlorine.
Yeah, we're going to get to that. But we were only talking about the potential for pulmonary edema being evident in cases like this. Obviously, we'll talk about the likelihood of chlorine being released later, but we have to get to this point by point. We're only on this point because you couldn't answer the question, why are there corpses with foam?
Vaush, I literally just did answer the question, I think 4 or 5 times. I gave you my answer.
Chat, did he? Did he answer why there are corpses with foam? I don't remember that.
I said exactly what the inspectors on the ground found.
How did they get there? I don't want what the inspectors found because the evidence sides with me. I want your alternative explanation for what took place.
I don't allege to have that because I'm not an inspector, and the inspectors who were investigating that, their fact-finding mission investigation was compromised before they could have alleged what was responsible.
Okay, so it didn't happen, but there's no just don't look at any of the corpses with the foaming mouths, guys. It didn't happen, just don't look at them. Okay. All right, we can move to the next one. Okay, that's fine. So, okay. Wait, no, it's fine. No, it's fine. We're just beginning. We have to move faster than this. Okay. So, with that being said, what about the numerous witness reports of the helicopter? The Syrian government was the only agency that had any control of the airspace over Douma. The Syrian rebel forces just didn't. I haven't found any evidence that they had a functioning air force in that region. So what about all the witnesses who spoke not only to the OPCW claiming this, but also to journalistic organizations that showed up before the OPCW could?
What regarding what?
The existence of the helicopter, the 2 helicopters that flew in the air over Douma, the 2 helicopters that were found to have deported from the Douma Air Base just 15 minutes before they arrived at that location in Douma. And the fact, I mean, we could also rope in the fact that the damage done to the 2 buildings that had the cylinders dropped in them were consistent with damage done by very heavy cylinders being dropped from a couple hundred meters.
So, a few things on that. First of all, the OPCW investigators found tons of inconsistencies in the testimonies of the people on scene who you allege to be witnesses of these helicopters, these 2 Russian helicopters. But what I will say is it's possible that there were... Listen, please listen, just let me finish. There is a possibility that there were helicopters. I don't know their flight routes on that given day, but what I will say is that it is highly unlikely that you had 2 helicopters flying that close to the ground in an area that was controlled by Jaish al-Islam, which is a Saudi-backed extremist militia group that had advanced artillery access that could have easily, shot those 2 helicopters out of the sky. It makes no sense that they would have done that, especially considering that they were
the Syrian army frequently bombs rebel-controlled cities. They do that all the time.
They were just on the verge of regaining control of Douma. Jaish al-Islam had already began to release a few of the prisoners earlier that week on Wednesday. So it would make no sense for them to have done that.
Wait,
because
helicopter bombings... Wait, first of all, they were currently shelling the city. And second of all, helicopter bombings from the Syrian Air Force take place constantly. That's a
Sure.
wait. That's not just like this happened here because it's happened a few other times. This is like an ongoing reality of the Syrian civil war.
Gosh, you didn't let me finish. So it's possible that there were helicopters, sure, but Ian Henderson's reports on the ground in Duma found that there was no evidence that suggested and that it was improbable that helicopters actually dropped these cylinders in Duma.
Oh, we'll get to Ian Henderson. Don't you worry, buddy. So I just think it's interesting that, like, one of the claims you made to discredit the helicopter one was like, and why would they even drop bombs from helicopters anyway, when it's something they've been doing, like, all the time for years? Like, just like a reflexive defense on your part. We'll get to the Ian Henderson report, don't worry. So your argument, then, is that there were wait, really quick.
So this area. They're trying to regain control of this area. And then on this day, where they knew they were on the verge of regaining control, Jaish al-Islam had already indicated that they were about to negotiate a controlled release into the Idlib province. Why would they continue bombing? It makes no sense.
They
knowing
were
that
shelling the city at the time. Wait, are you saying that Assad wasn't shelling the city at the time?
They were cylinders, that they were chemical cylinders.
Wait, one claim at a time. Are you saying Assad wasn't shelling Duma at the time? You're saying, like, why would they helicopter bomb Duma? They were currently shelling the city at the time. Like, the alleged chemical weapons attack took place during the shelling.
Chemical cylinders. That's what you allege.
Wait, you need to answer one point at a time. I'm not letting you run away from that. Why are you saying that Assad wouldn't have reason to bomb the city when they were currently shelling the city?
They had a long history of shelling the city in an effort to regain control. But what you allege is far different. You allege that the helicopters dropped those chemical, alleged chemical cylinders.
Mixing up. Wait, hold on. You're mixing up claims again. You're getting confused. So I'm contesting a defense that you've made. You claimed. Wait,
is that not what you allege?
You claimed very stupidly that there's no wait. You can't wait. Please don't turn into, like, I hypocrite levels of brain dead yet. Please, God, give me a second, okay? You claimed
drop the cylinders, right?
Oh no, it's already happening.
No, is that what you allege?
So you claimed that Assad would have no reason to bomb Duma, but they were currently shelling Duma. So
I said they would have no reason to bomb with chemical cylinders.
You didn't say that, actually. You just said they would have no reason to send helicopters on a bombing run.
They have no reason to bomb with chemical cylinders, which is what you allege.
Wait, no, you didn't actually say that. You said they would have no reason to send helicopters in a bombing run. So you're saying they did have reason to send helicopters in a bombing run? They did have reason to do that?
No, they have no reason to drop chemical cylinders.
We're not talking about chemical cylinders yet. We're talking about the helicopters, okay? Hold on. So you're saying, then, that they did have a reason to send helicopters on bombing runs. Not chemical bombing runs, but a bombing run. Because they were already shelling the city.
The Syrian government had a long history of shelling Duma in an effort to regain control. But what you are alleging is that chemical cylinders were dropped there.
So again, we're not talking chemical cylinders yet. We're just talking about the act of bombing with a helicopter, which you said they didn't have a reason to. So again, for like the 5th time, you believed then that Assad did have reason to bomb with helicopters, considering he was currently shelling the city, just not with chemical weapons. But you do believe he had a reason to use helicopters to bomb the city. Not with chemical weapons, but just with conventional armaments.
Not necessarily, but the allegation is that those helicopters dropped chemical cylinders.
I know that. Can we take it one claim at a time instead of you trying to run from this one by jumping to the next one? Why would they not have a reason to run helicopter sorties over Duma when they were shelling the city?
Dropped chemical cylinders into the buildings. That is the principal claim.
No, the principal claim we're on right now is whether or not they would even have a reason to bomb the city. So they were already shelling the city. So did they have a reason to bomb it as well? This is yes or no.
Long history of shelling the city. Yes.
They were currently shelling the city.
They had a long history.
They were currently... Wait, are you shorting out right now? They were currently, on that day, April 7th, 2018, bombing the city, shelling the city. And you said they would have no reason to run a helicopter sortie. Quit running to other points, dude.
Cylinders were dropped from those helicopters.
Oh my... Are you broken?
That's your claim. That is your claim. Are you broken? Do you not
you
know
can't.
your own?
You need to answer this one, and then we can move to the chemical weapons. Do you believe the Assad government would have had a reason to run a helicopter sortie over that city? You said they didn't, but they were shelling the city at the time.
Not necessarily, but your
Why
claim
not?
is that
Wait, why not?
chemical-
Answer that. Why not necessarily? Why would they not be willing to bomb the city when they were currently shelling it and have bombed it many times before?
Because they were on the verge of regaining control. Not necessarily they could have. I don't know. That's not what the investigators were looking into.
And why'd you
okay?
make that claim? Then why were they shelling the city if they already were on the brink of winning?
Your claim that we are here to debate is whether or not those helicopters.
Oh my god, dude! You can't make spurious claims and then get mad when I call you out on them. If you made the claim, you should be able to defend it. You made the claim that there's no reason for them to run a helicopter to bomb the city. Okay.
Okay, so let's talk about the chemical cylinders.
Okay, so you're acknowledging then that the Assad did have justification or like a reason to send helicopters to bomb Duma because he was already shelling it and he's bombed it many times before. There's no reason to contest that.
Not necessarily.
What? Then what? Then can you justify that claim? Well, are you just saying it to like reflexively defend Assad? Are you like between his like legs right now? Like what? Why are you making claims and then refusing to defend them?
Because it could have been. I don't know. That's not the investigation, and I'm not going to allege to know this.
Okay.
But
So you'll make claims and then when called out on them, you'll be like, well, I don't know.
No. Let me finish. It's possible. I don't know. I'm not going to act like I purport to know this. But what I will say is that Syria was on the verge of regaining control of this area, which had been under control of a Saudi-backed extremist militia group that was torturing civilians in Duma.
This has literally nothing to do. This is just a propaganda run. This has nothing to do with the claims being made right now. Like literally nothing.
To do with it, because I'm getting to the key point here. The fact that they had pretty much, there was people within Jaish al-Islam who had indicated that they were ready to negotiate an exit from Duma into Idlib, and they had already released some of the hostages on Wednesday.
What does this have to do with the claims of the helicopter being there?
Because why would they continue? It's very possible that they did continue shelling. That's why I say not necessarily. I don't know. But why would they continue shelling if they were on the verge of regaining control?
They were continuing to shell. It's not why were they. Dude, if you want to know why, ask Assad. They were shelling the city. That's not a contested statement. The Syrian government doesn't deny it. They were shelling it.
That has nothing to do with your principal claim, though. Your principal claim is that these helicopters dropped chemical weapons.
Then why did you bring it up? You were the one who said that Assad would have no reason to be shelling and bombing the city when they were currently shelling and bombing the city. What? You brought that up, dude. My question was, why were there witness reports saying there were helicopters there?
Vaush, let's talk about your allegation that the helicopters dropped these chemical
weapons. We weren't,
weapons.
so, okay, I get it. You want to run from those points. That's fine. So wait, the actual question was, why were there so many witnesses who said that there were helicopters at the time that the alleged chemical weapons attack took place? Like right over that area that they bombed with those helicopters.
Investigators didn't investigate that. And you can't purport to know that either. But what you do purport to know...
So wait, hold on. Wait, are you suggesting they were paid off?
What?
Why did all of those dozens of witnesses confirm they saw helicopters drop those bombs on locations 2 and 4?
I didn't say that they were paid off. I said that the OPCW investigators who were on the ground found inconsistencies with the witnesses on the ground.
Their witness testimonies, of course they're going to find inconsistencies, but the overwhelming majority of people at that area confirmed that they saw helicopters drop those bombs. It's a war situation. Of course there are going to be some inconsistencies.
The ballistic and engineering experts who were on the ground investigating this, they said that there was no evidence to suffice that the helicopters definitively dropped those alleged chemical cylinders into the buildings. And that's your principal claim. That's
Are you referring to Ian Henderson right now?
Yes.
Ian Henderson was never there.
That is a false claim.
Wait, hold on. Wait, am I mixing them up? Wait, hold on. 1 second. Where's that report from the OPCW? I could be mixing them up with Alex. Hold on. Wait, hold on. With respect to Investigator A, Inspector A, sorry, he was not a member. Wait, hold on.
Did you really just say that?
Well, I think I just got Inspector A and B mixed up.
He was literally, Vaush, he was literally taking measurements in the building
No, he didn't. Wait, no, he didn't. He worked off a drawing that he did off of the actual OPCW reports. Remember? The reason why his findings were rejected was because his measurements were inaccurate. His measurements of the cylinders were nearly 0.08 meters off because he was using a drawing, and they weren't let into the buildings. Hold on. This is the official claim from the OPCW.
No, that's not the official claim from the OPCW. That's
Can I read it?
a claim. That's a claim from Bellingcat. The 0.08 meters off. That's a claim from Bellingcat.
It's corresponded from internal email documentation. I know you haven't read it because it doesn't support your narrative.
Which image matching software to make that claim. Ian Henderson was on the ground taking measurements.
Wait, can I read the report really quick?
He wasn't there.
Wait,
what are you talking about?
Can I read the report? Yeah, I said it because I briefly mixed up Inspector A and Inspector B. It's hard to keep up with all the conspiracy stuff. I corrected myself like 2 seconds afterwards. I know you're gloating because this is the closest you're getting to a W in this conversation, but let's take a deep breath and read this report, okay? So this is from the OPCW on independent investigation into possible breaches of confidentiality reports, okay? And they said, with respect to Inspector A, that's the Ian Harrington person. Huh?
Go on.
Wait, what'd you say?
Go on.
What'd you... Nah, come on. Don't be a coward. What'd you say? Come on, share it with the class.
I was just fucking with you. I was like, is this the doctored report? But go on.
Okay, gotcha. Very nice. You know, is this from a Goldstein? You know, very, very common joke I'm familiar with from your kind. Anyway, with respect to Inspector A, he was not a member of the fact-finding mission. As described by the... Wait, hold on. As described by the investigators, Inspector A played a minor supporting role in the investigation of the Duma incident, and he did not have access to all the information gathered by the FFM team, including witness interviews, laboratory results, and analyses by independent experts. Although Inspector A... Wait, hold on. I'm almost done. Please. Although Inspector A's assessment purports to be an official OPCW FFM report on the Duma incident, it is instead a personal document created with incomplete info and without authorization. So to be clear, when you're saying that an on-the-ground team found inconsistencies in evidence of a helicopter dropping a bomb, what you're actually saying is that one guy who wasn't a part of the fact-finding mission produced an unauthorized and incomplete report when he didn't have access to the broader information available to the FFM team. Not a broad team, just Inspector A.
So I was prepared that you might make these claims because these are the claims that have been leveled by OPCW Director General Fernando Arias, but they are completely false. And I have images of OPCW documents that can prove you wrong. But first, I just want to briefly summarize.
Wait, on what?
That you allege that he wasn't a part of the fact-finding mission team.
They allege this, yes.
He wasn't on the ground. So OPCW documents describe Henderson, and I'm just briefly summarizing here, but I have all the links if you want me to send them to you.
I do.
OPCW documents describe Henderson as an FFM member, fact-finding mission team member, and list him among the mission personnel and add the group of inspectors, and in the group of inspectors on the Duma mission. They also list Henderson in the group of inspectors on the Duma mission, that he was a part of the team conducting the technical secretariat visits, and the Office of the Director General also noted, and I have pictures for all of this, that it would be happy, quote, happy, if the visits to the cylinders in the hospital are led by Ian Henderson. So this is a debunked claim that was espoused by the OPCW Director General. Yes, I will. But these claims were espoused by him, and they've been debunked. And this is the same guy that the inspectors are alleging omitted key information in this investigation, and I'm now going to send you those.
So if he was part of the FFM, then why did he have to produce a personal document with incomplete information and no authorization? The document that he released wasn't one of the drafts of the interim document.
Wait. Vaush, sorry. I'm just trying to send you these, so give me 1 second.
Okay. Wait, no, hold on. Please don't send me grainy screenshots that look like they could have been from like a World War I training manual. Please give me the actual documents that these are from. Yeah, this is some cotton ADP type stuff right here. I'm going to need the actual documents these are from. And while you're posting these, we can review the broader question, which is why so many witnesses claim that helicopters were present at the scene. Okay, you're just... okay, we're spamming WikiLeaks. Wait, do you have, like, citations in here, or did you literally just send me 500 pages? Wait,
They
hold
should-
on. This is the
Vaush,
first
Vaush.
draft interim report. You're just sending me like random shit. Didn't the first draft interim report come out before Ian Henderson published his undocumented report? Wait, what was the timeline on this? Are you just sending me random shit?
Vaush, Vaush. My apologies. I didn't mean to send that last one.
Okay.
But the other ones, wait, and there's one more, because I accidentally sent the wrong one.
Are you sure you're not just link dumping everything on WikiLeaks to me?
No, I was actually very prepared, so I had the leaked documents ready for you.
Okay, well, I appreciate that.
There, 1 second. No,
Yeah, the engineering assessment was published by Henderson's engineering report. It wasn't like it was a personal document. It was published in early 2019, whereas the draft OPCW reports.
That's saying that it's a personal report is incorrect, but we'll get to that in a second because I'm trying to send you the last thing here.
Wait, what official supervision did that report undergo?
We'll get to that in a second, but let me please just finish.
Okay, I'll look at these, but you still need to explain to me why so many witnesses saw helicopters at the scene dropping those bombs. Like,
No. Witnesses do not claim to have seen them dropping the chemical cylinders.
No, they claim that helicopters were present over the site at the exact instant people started dying. Okay, you can put the pieces together if you want. Why did they see helicopters there?
You're already moving back on your claims because you know that was an incorrect statement. No one claims to have seen them dropping those cylinders. And in addition to that, the inspector, Ian Henderson, who I just pointed out here,
can you answer the question? Did they hallucinate the helicopters, or did helicopters from the Syrian government just happen to be directly overhead right as the false flag happened?
I'm not going to purport to know that. The investigators didn't look into that, but what I will say is that the witnesses don't claim that they dropped the cylinders, and Ian Henderson, who was a part of the fact-finding mission team,
the witnesses were in buildings. They couldn't look up, but they heard helicopter blades, and they saw helicopters when they left.
Vaush, you just tried to discredit the guy who did the reports that found that there was no evidence that those were dropped from a helicopter.
Wait, we're not talking about the cylinders yet. We're talking about witness testimony.
What have I been imagining?
Wait, the reason why this conversation feels like it's really discontinuous is because every time you can't answer a question, you move to the next one that you do have links prepared for.
I just backed it up with the actual leaked documents.
Wait, hold on. Do these leaked documents explain why dozens of witnesses claimed there were helicopters present at the attack?
You're the one who's jumping from argument. Are you gonna retract the claim that Ian Henderson was not a part of the fact-finding mission team?
How about one point at a time? You realize that was the original point we were making, right? I haven't even gotten to any of the whistleblower things yet. You keep wanting to jump to them because that's where like the conspiracy boners are, you know?
You made the claim before me.
Can you answer the question?
Mission team.
Why did witnesses all overwhelmingly, the vast majority of people interviewed, say that helicopters were present at the scene?
Vaush, again, there were a lot of inconsistencies with the witness testimonies. They don't allege that the helicopters dropped the cylinders, and Ian Henderson, who is the investigator, claimed that there is not evidence to suffice the allegation that the helicopters dropped the cylinders. So
okay, we need to break the loop. Can we break the NPC dialogue tree? Why? So are you saying it was a hallucination then?
We had already broken this loop, and then you made the claim that Ian Henderson was not a part of the fact-finding mission team.
You were the one who brought up Ian Henderson.
I gave you the documents, and then you went back to the argument that you're trying to say.
Can you find me the passages in these documents that say what you say they say? You just provided me links to WikiLeaks articles.
So pull them up and read them. They're highlighted.
Wait, okay. So I would love to, but it takes me time to do that. So wait, there's an echo on your end. Why is there an echo? What happened?
I could not tell you that. There's an echo?
Hello? Yeah, there's an echo coming from your end. Do you have earbuds in?
Did it just start?
It just started like a minute ago.
No, everyone on my end saying no echo, so I think it's something on...
No, it means that... is your audio being broadcast audibly? Is it being picked up on your speakers?
Yeah, but I mean, I haven't changed anything. It has been for this entire time.
It might have something to do with auto sensitivity detection. Okay, so we can move to this, but I
I'm
have
just
to
turning my
ask you
volume up.
again, do you think there were helicopters? Like, why did all these witnesses claim there were helicopters? Was it a coincidence that Syrian Air Force helicopters were just hovering over the area right as this alleged attack took place?
I don't know, Vaush, and the investigators did not look into that. But what they did look into was whether or not helicopters could have dropped
I
those
know,
cylinders.
we'll get to
and they
that.
did not find
Wait,
that.
by investigators, you mean one guy who was discredited by the rest of the organization and published a personal report that was never filed officially. Don't use investigators, plural.
Vaush, you just said he was discredited by the investigation. And your allegations for that was that he was not a part of the fact-finding mission team. I proved that wrong.
No, it's that his reports weren't included in the final report.
Said they'd be happy if the visits to the cylinders in hospital were led by Ian Henderson. In addition to that, I just want to point out that Ian Henderson is a chemical and engineering ballistics expert.
I know that he is an expert.
Authored the study, and in addition to that, he took measurements on scene, which you claimed he didn't. He served with the OPCW for a total of 11 years so far. And in 2005, a senior OPCW official wrote that Henderson has consistently received the highest rating
possible. This has literally nothing to do with the claims. So I'm going to try this.
Said that he's been discredited.
Yeah, so wait, being discredited in one report doesn't mean that, like, your entire career has to be a legacy of failure. This has nothing to do. You're just like, wait, why do I hear the echo again? Wait, why do I hear the echo again? Can you, like, put earbuds in or something?
That's your problem, dude. It's not on mine.
Wait, is this how limited your knowledge of how the world works is? It is my problem because I'm hearing my echo.
It seems like every single time I bring up the fact that your claim.
Do you think I'm making it up?
Not being on the fact-finding mission, there's somehow an echo, but we'll try to figure this out.
Just put earbuds in. Do you have earbuds? You can turn my volume down.
PC. Not for my PC. Everyone on my end says no echo.
They can't. Wait, do you know how echoes work? You can't hear echo because I have earbuds in.
Opium. No echo on my end, brother.
You don't. Are you trolling? You would be, wouldn't you? That's your out into this conversation, isn't it?
What?
This is your way out, isn't it?
No, this is your way out. What are you talking about?
You can listen to my stream if you want. There is an audible echo. It's very distracting. Everyone on my end can hear it. How many people are watching on my end? Okay, I have 7,500 people who can attest to the existence of an echo.
Okay, let's figure this out.
Okay.
We've been streaming this entire time, and we haven't had an echo issue. I did not change my volume levels. Did you change any of your volume levels?
It wouldn't matter. I have earbuds in.
Well,
my audio isn't being broadcast on a speaker.
Can you still hear it?
Echo. Yes. Yes. Wait, it's a little bit lower. Did you lower the volume? Hello?
Try again.
Hello?
Try again.
Oh, wait, I don't hear it now. I don't hear it now. Okay. We did it. We did it. All fixed.
Let's go. Let's get it.
Okay, so you have no alternate explanation for the presence of helicopters at the scene.
What's that?
You have no alternate explanation for helicopters at the scene.
There's one witness, according to the witness testimonies, who alleged to have seen this helicopter. Beyond that, there's no information surrounding them having, like, dropped cylinders, which is your principal
claim. We're not
claim.
talking about dropped cylinders. We're talking about the helicopters. One claim at a time. And no, it's not one witness. There were many witnesses that corroborated this information. There were people who talked with NGOs and journalistic organizations immediately after the attacks took place. Reporters on the scene talk with people.
The original report says that around hour 1900, I just pulled this up, on the same day, a witness reported seeing a helicopter. So that's just one witness. I don't know if you have more. But
yeah.
Your principal claim is that the helicopter was responsible for dropping the chemical cylinders.
I'm just saying there were helicopters there. Again, you keep jumping to the next claim.
Let's just say that. Let's just say I'll agree with you that a witness claimed to have seen
multiple
a helicopter.
Witnesses.
Let's go with that, and let's continue on.
Wait, multiple witnesses, not one witness. There were dozens of them that corroborated that information.
According to the OPCW report, the original report.
What was the original report?
What's that?
What was the original report?
You
mean the draft by Alex, don't you? Not the original report. Yeah, so you mean the Alex draft report, the one that wasn't published. Okay, the original report, right. So that's because witness testimonies hadn't been completed yet.
Because I want to hear your evidence for why or how you believe the cylinders were dropped from the helicopter.
Wait, okay, so we're conceding the helicopter point. Okay, gotcha. So there were helicopters. Now we're talking about the chemical, or them dropping like the chemical canisters.
I never said that there weren't. I just said not necessarily. But let's continue.
Okay, so let's try to build this up piece by piece. So do you acknowledge that there were chlorine gas canisters found at locations 2 and 4?
There were cylinders there.
Okay. And do you acknowledge that the cylinders were consistent with the method and the technique that would traditionally be used to deploy a chlorine chemical weapons attack?
What are you alleging is a typical way to deploy a chemical weapons attack? Are you referring to dropping by a helicopter?
No, I mean that the canisters themselves were of the appropriate dimensions, contained the appropriate mechanical components to contain highly pressurized chlorine gas. Essentially, that these are the types of munitions that would be used to do such a thing. These are also consistent, basically, with the types of designs that have been used in previous chemical weapons attacks in Syria.
So, I don't contest that.
Okay. How do you suspect those arrived there?
The investigation concluded that there was no evidence that a helicopter dropped them, first of all.
But wait, hold on. I request that you use... Please use specific language. Not the investigation. The investigation didn't make the claims you're making. You're talking about the personal report from Ian Henderson, the one that was never published.
The engineering investigation, which
there were other engineering investigations. You're talking specifically about the one that was published by, not published even, that was produced by Ian Henderson. Just be specific with your language, okay? There were other engineering reports that disagreed with what he said. You're talking just about Ian Henderson.
The engineering report that was asked to have been led by Ian Henderson, yes. And that report found that there was a higher probability, I'm quoting this, that both cylinders were manually placed rather than being delivered from aircraft. And then it goes on, at location 4, where a cylinder was found on the bed, the study determined that the cylinder was too large to have penetrated the hole in the roof above. At the other site, location 2, the observed damage to the cylinder and to the roof it allegedly penetrated were incompatible with an aircraft bombing. Ballistic experts, and this part is not a quote, ballistic experts also said it was more likely that the crater had been made by an explosion, probably an artillery round, a rocket, or a mortar. With both cylinders, the study concluded, and I'm quoting again, the alternative hypothesis that the cylinders were manually placed and that the craters were caused by other means produce the only plausible explanation for observations at the scene.
Okay, so a couple of questions then. If this is the case, you do realize Ian Henderson did conclude that there was a chemical weapons attack, or at least that was where he believed the evidence led. You're the one making the claim that there was no chemical weapons attack, but in doing so, you're citing evidence from an engineering report from a person whose conclusion aligned with mine, that there was a chemical weapons attack. How do you reconcile?
Where's your evidence that Ian Henderson claimed there was a chemical attack?
Have you read his report? He said that
I'm asking you for the information.
Sure. I mean, we can go and read the report if you want. Give me a second.
Well, you're stating it like it's fact, so I figured you'd have it.
Yes, that was his conclusion, yes.
So where did you get that?
From his report.
That there was a chemical weapons attack.
He said that the evidence led in that direction, yeah. He was under the impression not that there wasn't a chlorine gas attack, but rather that it was placed there. The implication was that Syrian rebels had done so, which is the reason why it wasn't published, because the OPCW is legally disallowed from making any claims as to the agents who are responsible for any alleged chemical weapons attacks. Henderson's document seemed to like suggest that it was Syrian planted, and for that reason it wasn't published.
So I don't believe that, and I could be wrong about this, but I don't believe that Ian Henderson claimed that there was a chemical attack.
He didn't use language that's strong because they never do. They say, "What? You don't know that?"
What I do know, well, you continue to claim that he said that without a, beyond a reasonable doubt.
No, I do. Wait, but, I did not at any point. Wait, please do not lie about what I've said. Okay, I said that he believed the conclusions indicated that, as the evidence inferred that.
Wait. No, he did not say that. He did not say that. Vaush, you're making this stuff up. So again, please, one more time, just so I don't get it wrong here. What did you say? What did you say?
His claim was not that there was no chemical attack, only that the canisters were planted there rather than dropped. His contention was with the deployment of the canisters.
So wait, so you know, because a few seconds ago you said that he said that there was a chemical attack, but that I'm
trying to be like specific with my language, and it keeps not working because you keep not hearing. Okay, I'm going to be as specific as I can with this language, and this is going to be my final. Wait, here's my.
You said that Anderson claimed that there was a chemical attack. That's what you said.
So I'm pretty sure what I said was that the report was principally on the method of the canister's delivery. I believe that the evidence as presented in it did not indicate that Henderson was contesting the existence of a chemical weapons attack. That's the most specific language I can use.
Vaush, you're changing your words now. Now you're saying that he didn't contest that there wasn't a chemical attack. A few seconds ago, you said that Ian Henderson did believe there was a chemical attack, but that it was not helicopters who carried out the attack, and that it was likely manually placed. So you're changing your words here. But what I will say is that he did believe that it was likely a manual placement. You're lying about him saying that there was a chemical attack, and if you're not, if you believe you're not lying, I'd like you to cite this, but you can't because you're lying. And
I like how you've been weaseling off like everything that you've said, and me being very slightly more specific with my language to avoid being taken out of context by you is interpreted as lying.
So many times throughout this debate, I'm just asking you to cite one thing that you said, and you can't cite it because
you haven't cited anything that you've said. I asked you for citations on a claim about helicopter sources, and you linked me 5 articles. I said, "Hey, are these really all relevant?" And you were like, actually, hold on, wait." And you were like, "No, wait, actually, I sent you 200 irrelevant pages."
No, did you contest the other 3 links I sent you? Because those links were
I haven't had a chance to read them yet. You didn't give me, you didn't highlight or cite it.
I said, sorry, I sent you the wrong link for the 4th link, but the other 3 are accurate.
You didn't cite anything in there. You just gave me documents. We've been talking. I haven't had time to read them yet.
What you just said, because you said that Ian Henderson claimed that there was a chemical attack, but it was not. It was not carried out by helicopters.
I think I've been very specific on my language, and your attempts at obfuscating the situation are indicative of desperation on your part. So Ian Henderson's report did not contest.
Can you cite it?
Ian Henderson's report?
You said that he believed there was a chemical attack.
Can you wait? I've repeated this like 20 times now. Are you like deaf? I'm being very clear on this. Can you cite any part of the report where he claims that there was no chemical weapons attack?
Bro, your allegation.
I've said very specifically
there was a chemical attack, which I'm asking you to cite.
I said very specifically this document does not speak on the existence of the chemical weapons attack, but it still indicates
there was a chemical attack.
Do you want to read? Wait. So I keep telling you what I said, and you're like, "Oh, then why did you say this?" And then you say I said a thing I didn't say. I've been very clear about what I said. Do you want to like move forward? You're not even arguing against my positions at this point. We can read this together if you want to.
Bro, you literally told me that Ian Henderson believed there was a chemical attack. You didn't say that he didn't contest that there wasn't a chemical attack, or he didn't weigh in on that. You said he believed there was a chemical attack. This guy's
literally like shadow boxing. Holy fuck.
You can't cite it.
Do you want to read it with me?
I'm still waiting on you for you
You're
to
not.
cite
You're
this.
asking me to cite a thing that I don't believe. Why? Like, how long do you want to spend on this?
I'm asking you to cite something that you said a few seconds ago, and it doesn't exist. And now you're asking me to read the report with you.
Have you read it before?
There is no sentence in that report that claims what you just said.
Yeah, because the report wasn't on the chemical weapons attack. The reason why this wasn't published to begin with is because the inference here was that there was some degree of responsibility on the part of the Syrian rebel group for the chemical weapons attack. It was because this document seems to assert that the chemical weapons attack was a product of Syrian rebellion interference that it didn't get published to begin with. This document is not about there not being a chemical weapons attack. It is only about him talking about the logistics of the delivery of the bomb. Statements, which, by the way, were contested later from within the OPCW significantly, which is why they weren't included in the final report.
You realize that every single member of the fact-finding mission
He's going
team
to keep debating a thing that I don't believe.
Agreed that it was highly unlikely and there was no evidence to suggest that helicopters dropped the cylinders. Every single member except for one.
Do you have evidence of that claim?
It's
also, we weren't even on this yet, man. We weren't even on the whistleblower shit yet. Okay, so is your claim then that the canisters were placed there, like, manually? Like, they weren't dropped from helicopters, but helicopters were seen at the location, like, coincidentally. Like, a bunch of witnesses saw the helicopters, but then there just happened to be these canisters there, and it was like a coincidence that those two things happened. And also that there was damage to the buildings, which, like, correlated with the weight and the size of the canisters being dropped from a high velocity at a high altitude.
What I'm saying is that Ian Henderson believes, according to his own engineering report, that there's a higher probability that both cylinders were manually placed rather than being delivered from aircraft.
Did you say possibility?
The higher probability.
Higher probability. Okay, well, it seems like the other engineering reports and the broader OPCW disagree with him, which is why it wasn't included in the final report. Do you think that
engineering reports that you're flippantly citing here, they have no evidence. They're completely redacted, and they're from anonymous experts, which we haven't been able to see yet. If this whole investigation,
how are they redacted?
Let me finish. If this investigation was taken before the entire scientific advisory board of the OPCW, which is what I want to see happen, right? They could adjudicate this issue by meeting with the dissenting inspectors and all the original team members to weigh their evidence and arguments and their claims that they were censored, which you don't believe in.
This doesn't have anything to do with the claims being made here.
Come to a conclusion as to what happened. But the OPCW executives have denied every single request for this to happen. So I'm
this
curious.
Is more conspiracy. I'm asking you a question. Do you think they were planted there?
No, it's not. I'm curious if you believe that there should be a scientific advisory board panel led by the SAB into what took place here and the allegations of censorship and doctoring.
So you realize, like, you just completely moved away from what we were talking about to a broader conspiracy about censorship. Let's talk about what we were actually talking about before you pivoted off of it. Do you think that those canisters were just planted there?
I'm alleging exactly what Ian Henderson's investigation found, that there's a higher probability it concluded both cylinders were manually placed.
So you do believe that? You believe that they were planted there?
I'm alleging that there's a higher probability, and the investigation was cut short before they could come to a determination as to what happened. But yes, a lot of the evidence does point in the direction that they were manually placed.
From one guy's report.
From yes, from Ian Henderson's report, the one of the international leading experts on ballistics. And,
so wait, you can't keep deferring to authority because the authorities agree with me. You can't keep doing that. The overwhelming, like, international consensus is in favor of my narrative here.
If you don't want to reckon with the truth, and the
it's
OPCW,
what? Oh my God, dude! You guys really are indistinguishable from Sandy Hook deniers either. Dude, if you don't want to fight against the truth, like, dude, come on, take your dick out of your mouth, okay?
Continue, regardless of whether you like it or not, I guess.
So Henderson made that claim, but then there were other three independent engineering studies. Wait,
it's not just Henderson.
So wait, hold on. Well, you're referring to Henderson's report, are you not?
I was, and then you allege that it's insufficient because it's only one person. So I was going to continue.
So the claim that hold on. You can't
That's what you
answer. You haven't answered any of the direct questions. Were cylinders manually planted? Wait, I'm asking you a question about your belief. I'm asking you a question about your belief, so you can't keep weaseling out of your insane conspiracy bullshit by saying that you don't believe. You can't
claim that Ian Henderson believed there was a
you
chemical
can't contest the official narrative, but then not provide. Please, wait, please. You can't contest the official narrative and then not have another reasonable explanation. There has to be another reason why this happened. Why corpses were found with foam in their mouth. Wait, hold on. Why corpses were found foaming at the mouth. Why, for example, so many people saw helicopters over the city. So now I'm asking you, how did these chlorine gas canisters get at locations 2 and 4? And furthermore, how was there damage done to the buildings, which was consistent with an aerial deployment of these canisters? Did they, like, look around for buildings that looked like they had recently been shelled and then, like, ran up there with, like, an empty chlorine gas canister and then dropped it there and, like, nobody saw this?
It wasn't consistent. The ballistics experts said that it was more likely that the crater. Are you going to listen? It was more likely that the crater had been made by an explosion, probably from an artillery round, a rocket, or a mortar. With both cylinders, the study concluded the alternative hypothesis that the cylinders were manually placed and that the craters were caused by other means produced the only plausible explanation for observations at the scene.
Which study?
That is Ian Henderson's report.
Yeah, stop saying the study and stop saying the ballistic experts when what you mean is the one guy's completely unverified report. Can you please stop pretending there are more people on your side than actually are by not naming the people who we've already directly implicated in the broader conversation? Just say Ian Henderson's report, okay? Now, so how did the cylinders get there?
Vaush, that is the principal argument that I'm trying to make here.
How did the cylinders...
This investigation was cut short, and the key investigators were forced off the fact-finding mission team before they could complete their investigation. That is the exact argument that
cylinders
I make, and that's why I want to see this taken before a scientific advisory board of the OPCW, so we can identify and weigh out all the evidence on both sides, and come to a conclusion as to whether there was a cover-up and potentially start another investigation as to who was responsible for this attack.
How did the cylinders get there? They weigh about 180 pounds. They were brought up to 2 locations. One of them had a harness on it that was so large it would be difficult to fit through narrow hallways. How did they get up there when no witnesses, not even witnesses that the Syrian government or the Russian government interviewed, attested to have seen, like, people planting that stuff?
So Henderson's report was focused specifically on the issue of how the cylinders got there, not whether there was a chemical attack or anything like that. So he doesn't purport to know who was responsible for placing them.
I'm asking you how they got there. My narrative is really simple. Why were there people who died with foam in their mouths? Why were these buildings blown out without there being any shrapnel nearby? Why did these people die? Why were there canisters there? Why were there helicopters there? Oh, the helicopters dropped chlorine bombs, something that Assad has done many other times. Your explanation is, I don't know about the corpses, I don't know about the helicopters, I don't know about the canisters, I don't know about anything.
Which suggests that aircraft bombing was responsible for those alleged chemical cylinders getting there. In addition to that, the cylinders the report produced the only plausible explanation for the observations at the scene were manual placement. And Vaush, I haven't even gotten to this yet. I haven't even gotten to this yet, but I think this is important.
Whose report?
I think this is important. Relating to all of this stuff.
Really
quick. Might find this
whose report?
You might find this interesting.
And there were 3 independent engineering studies commissioned.
Who is a journalist at The Intercept? What
does this have to do?
You don't want to hear what The Intercept found?
No, I want to do the question by question instead of jumping around desperately to avoid answering basic questions about my conspiracy.
This is directly related to your claim, so I thought you might want to hear
the claim about the planting of chlorine bomb canisters.
Let's just go into it anyways. James Parkin believes that this actually relates to the initial point that you made regarding the makeup of the canisters themselves. So in his report, he found that the canister valve was unlikely to have snapped off so neatly without the benefit of
How
a
did they
detonator.
get there? Please, I can't keep doing this. Please,
Yes,
just
in the
tell me.
Okay, Vaush, if you are so concerned with how they got there,
That's a
I'm asking
pretty
you,
big question, isn't it?
what is your evidence? What is your no? Because I've highlighted many times that the only public investigation we have into this that hasn't been challenged by the OPCW executives has ruled out the fact that this was dropped by a helicopter, and that
one guy.
The only possibility is that they were manually placed. So I'm curious, what is your smoking gun evidence that these were dropped from a helicopter? I'm just
asking for a basic alternate explanation for how they got there. This is specialty equipment that weighs an enormous amount that would have been incredibly difficult to transport, yet no witnesses saw it happen, and we have videos of people scrambling and, like, dying right after this hits, like, the top floor of one of the buildings. There's, like, a video of people, like, choking and... Hold on. You can see the chlorine bomb peeking... Wait, hold on. Please. There's, like, a video of, like, people screaming and dying as, like, a chlorine bomb is half poking through a portion of the ceiling or the roof that it destroyed. And wait, please, God, I'm begging you so hard. Please let me finish this.
So helpful for Ian Henderson to have that video, Vaush.
Okay, please, God.
You have the video this entire time, but you haven't shown it to all of us yet. You want to show us the video of the chemical cylinders being dropped?
I can't. Wait, it's not a video of the chemical cylinders being dropped. It's a video of people panicking after the chlorine gas starts being disseminated into one of the buildings. I can't show it on my stream.
Way different, Vaush, because you just said
that's what I said.
That there was a video of helicopters dropping. And
no, I did. Dude, wait, I can't. Wait, are you arguing? Is there an echo?
You said there was a video of items being dropped, so I'll give you one. You said that, but where's that video?
Wait,
you just said there was a video of that.
Is there a third person in here?
What are you talking about?
Are you hearing somebody else's claims? Is there a third individual here making claims that I haven't made? You realize all this is being recorded, right? Is there like a is there a shadow? There's a video of the chlorine bomb partially in the building and people freaking out and around. I can't show it on my stream because it's TOS. It's not like a secret video. I can link it to you if you want. It's like pretty horrible.
Are you referring to the hospital scene?
No, I'm not. I know you're very, like, really want to do the white helmets thing, but no, I'm not. I'm talking about in the building. You
mean like I want to talk about the thing that has...
Oh my God, you can't... So wait, so you have no alternate explanation for the placement of the canisters. This is the third thing you're saying you just have no explanation for. Is that correct?
What I'm saying, you're just baselessly, saying that Ian Henderson's report is bogus, right? I mean, what are your claims that...
So you can't answer it. You can't answer it, dude. Oh, okay. All right, let's move to the next one then. We haven't even gotten to the Ian Henderson report, okay? Okay.
It was peer-reviewed, and he consulted with
What do you mean peer-reviewed? Who reviewed it?
The members of the fact-finding mission team and independent ballistic missile experts.
Independent ballistic missile experts. Then why did all of the independent engineering investigations afterwards disagree with Ian Henderson's report? That's not what peer review means, by the way.
I'd be so curious to find that out, but unfortunately, the OPCW hasn't made any of those investigations public. And the only investigation that has been made, you're referring to 3 different investigations by independent experts. None of those have been made that's the only public investigation we have is Ian Henderson's, and it's been peer-reviewed. And
that's not what peer review means. Peer review is an academic process. It doesn't mean other people have read this document. That's not what peer review means. Peer review means is something that happens in academia.
Because you said there was a video showing something being dropped from a helicopter onto the building.
No, I did. Wait, are you... I said at the beginning of this conversation that it's either going to be dishonesty or mental illness, and I'm leaning towards the latter one right now because this is like schizophrenia. Like, are you hearing shit I'm not saying? Are there other voices? Do they tell you to kill?
And you also can never cite the claim that Ian Henderson believed there was a chemical attack. I'm still waiting on that as well.
You need to get these voices checked out, okay? This is some serious shit that you really need to... I really hope they don't tell you to like kill or hurt people, okay? Because this is some really worrying stuff.
I cannot wait to clip this all up. You know, your
lack of preparation because you didn't believe in any of this when you came here.
Clearly didn't help your case. Neither did Patrick Hillsman's DMs.
What about Patrick Hillsman's? You know, it's funny because this really does feel like a point. Does it make you uncomfortable that like I'm feeling like I'm arguing with a Holocaust denier right now?
Vaush, where is the video?
Does that make you... Wait, you actually want the video of, like, people dying?
Send it to me. Because you said there was a video from showing a helicopter dropping something.
No, I didn't. Wait, I can't wait. I can't prove claims I literally haven't seen made, okay? You can go back and review the VOD if you want. You're free to clip it. That didn't happen, okay? Please listen to me and not to the voices in your head. That wasn't said.
Cool.
Okay. Do you want the video I was actually referring to? So in this video, like, I can't show it on my stream, but like, there's pretty clearly a gas canister and people freaking out. Did like people plant the gas canister and then got a bunch of crisis actors who later died to like freak out on camera and then they died with foam at their mouths? Like, here, I'll send you the video. Can you give me an explanation for this? This was uploaded the day of the attack, by the way.
The people who died were crisis actors.
Then how did? Can you explain this video?
Ian Henderson is alleging that, yes, like you just said, the canister was manually placed. So I'm glad you've been able to understand that now. And you asked who peer reviewed this. I told you.
Wait. I can't wait. We can't keep doing this conversation if you literally can't answer questions.
Executives have never been able to debunk his claims with public investigations or reports.
Wait. So do you believe in crisis actors?
I don't believe that. You said the people who died, I'm alleging, are crisis actors.
Wait,
I've never
I just sent you a video. There are people scrambling and freaking out, and you can see a gas canister. They are acting the way you'd expect them to if their house just got hit by a chlorine gas canister. Is this video faked? Did somebody run in there, plant the gas canister on the roof, and then get the camera ready and have a bunch of people freak out, and then later people in this video were found as corpses? Is that, like, the thing that happened?
So the white helmets who are running around.
This is not white. No. You're thinking like, what do I pivot to? This isn't white helmets.
We're construing a false narrative.
This isn't white helmets. This isn't white helmets. I know you keep wanting to pivot to that because you've like prepared talking points, but this is not white helmets.
Vaush, let's just go point by point here. If
oh
you
my
believe,
god!
If you believe, and I'm not saying you do, but let's say you believed Ian Henderson's report that
he can't.
What?
Oh, wait. If we're at the point now where you're so obviously aware that you've been blown the fuck out that you will literally not participate in a conversation that we are having, then we might as well just end it here. I've already given you more attention than you deserve. I know you were desperate to get my attention. If we're literally at this point now.
Ian Henderson's report said that it was more likely that the crater had been made by an explosion.
Okay, I think we're at that point. All right. Have fun, my dude. Talking to you was identical to talking with a neo-Nazi. There's literally no difference between you people. All right, I left. I can't, once we reach the point where they're literally not participating in a conversation, I like that. I'm like, here's a video immediately as the attack happened, and he's like, are you talking about the white helmets? Because he has like a bunch of talking points prepared about them, you know? He was not engaging in that conversation whatsoever. And by the way, hey, if you guys, anyone who agrees with him or watching this video, and you honestly believe he came off looking good there, you really are ideologically indistinguishable from neo-Nazis, because I have heard more convincing arguments for Holocaust camp deniers, okay? Wow! Like, every point, he's like, well, here's, I don't have an alternate explanation for why this incredible series of events took place, you know? Wow, you know, I can't explain the helicopters, I can't explain this, I can't explain that, I can't explain any of this, and he kept jumping to excuses to ignore every single point of the conversation, you know? He was like, oh yeah, well, you got your preparation points from the Young Turks guy. Oh, this is the white helmets talking point. Oh, you got this from Bellingcat and CIA. Can you go through your evidence, Vaush? I want to hear it so I know what to say to deniers. Do you guys want do you guys want all the evidence? Do you want me to like dump it on you? So that guy was a weaselly little fucking snake, so he wouldn't commit to any of his actual beliefs, but he believes, and a lot of other people like him believe, that it was a false flag attack that the United States and Syrian rebels orchestrated to justify the 2018 missile strikes, which by the way caused no Syrian deaths and then ended up killed nobody. And only destroyed facilities which the U.S. military claimed were chemical weapon facilities, and then chemical weapon attacks stopped afterwards. So that sure was some crazy WMD false flag that they did. They did a false flag to show the Syrian government did something that they already do all the time anyway, in order to cause 3 deathless strikes on facilities. You're still streaming video to Jackson? No, I'm not. Whatever he's doing on his end, there's no longer anything coming from my end to his end. Anyway, oh, dude, that's funny. You know who just DM'd me saying that I just ran away? Flamenco, a literal neo-Nazi. That's crazy, dude. Well, all bedfellows, you know? That's it's just some wild, very on the left people, you know? Anyway, glad he still watches me. Anyway, okay, so first of all, the claims that this was a false flag orchestrated by the United States are ridiculous because the United States really didn't have anything to gain from it. They didn't make any significant strategic advances in the region. And additionally, the consequences of the chemical weapon attack ended up leading the Syrian rebels to flee from Douma, giving the Assad military forces a hold up in the Syrian civil war. So the United States orchestrated a false flag to achieve essentially nothing and then also gave a strategic advantage to Assad, and it happened 3 years ago. Later, Assad even bragged that he got off easily after the chemical weapons attack. There's so much stuff that we didn't even have the opportunity to go over. Oh my God. First of all, when the OPCW initially tried to do an investigation of what took place in Douma, the Russian and Syrian military forces blocked them, citing security concerns, except they were never able to provide any evidence of them. Then, when the OPCW was finally able to arrive about a week later, the Russian and Syrian forces suddenly, were not present, and then there was small weapons fire that attacked the OPCW investigators. Security concerns, which forced them away. Somehow, this was done in spite of the fact that Russian and Syrian forces controlled the city. The rebel forces had already fled. So what security concerns? And also, if it was a U.S. false flag, why the fuck would they be wanting to keep the OPCW from investigating the claims that they believed could support their arguments later? The Russian and Syrian governments prevented the OPCW from investigating the site for 2.5 weeks. A little over 2 weeks, I think. Thereabouts, something like that. A long time, okay? So after all of this obfuscation, keep in mind the OPCW was delayed, but other organizations weren't, okay? Other organizations like the New York Times and international humanitarian and anti-war organizations, they were present immediately after the attack, and they were got witness testimonies and found overwhelmingly people arguing that there was a chemical weapons attack, overwhelmingly arguing that that they saw helicopters. Like, all of the testimonials that they gave really ended up aligning with the narrative that I produce. The only notable instance of a person disagreeing with that narrative was a young boy and his father who claimed that there was no such attack. That person right there apparently were interviewed at a military base, and they were prompted by the Russian military, you know? So, here we have one witness who disagrees with the overwhelming, amount of witness testimonies, and it's this kid and his father, and we're the Russian military. Okay. Anyway, there are, a billion, a trillion even, little pieces of misinformation that Russia and Syria spread immediately after these attacks. For example, Russia made the claim that the attack didn't actually not happen at all, but instead that there were attacks locally at a Syrian rebel-controlled chemical weapons storage facility that later turned out not to exist. It was a complete lie. There was a scramble to assemble a bunch of different narratives. There were people saying that there had never been any chemical weapons attacks, and incidentally, there were also dissonant reports coming out from medical experts who were in Damascus 10 kilometers away, who claimed that the people may have died from dust inhalation, except that's not consistent with any of the medical evidence or any of the evidence of other examples of bombing or shelling effects in cities before, so it seemed like a really huge waste of time. Guys, if you're wondering why the tankies or Assadists are freaking out, it's because they're alt-righters, okay? They act identically to alt-righters. Have you ever seen them on Twitter? They're completely identical. They're not different in any way. They get along with alt-righters. There's a reason why Partisan Girl is literally friends with Nick Fuentes, okay? They're alt-righters. They're authoritarians. They just like it. They like conspiracy, and they like it when people are murdered for, as part of the domination of an ethnic minority. They just enjoy it, okay? Anyway, so all of that aside, there's so much evidence aligned against every element of this. First and foremost, the Inspector A, the Alex person who published the first draft of the interim report, that person, many of their claims were based off of biochemical analyses of the bodies and of the survivors of the alleged chemical weapons attack. However, the OPCW as early as 2014 claimed they would no longer use biochemical indicators as a suggestion as to whether or not there was any evidence of a chlorine gas attack. The reason being that they're not reliable. In terms of the evidence of there having been a chlorine gas attack, in addition to an overwhelming number of witness testimonies, corpses and corpses of people with like foam and bubbling at the mouth, people with injuries consistent with chlorine gas, though it can vary tremendously depending on length of exposure and how quickly you were treated and stuff like that, which is why the OPCW doesn't use those indicators as reliable suggestions anymore. Additionally, here's a nice little piece of evidence. So here's one of those cylinders that the coward we just talked to said that he didn't have any alternate explanation for the presence of. What we're looking at right here is just 2 months of erosion. Look at this. This is a steel canister. Over here, this is a picture taken right after the bomb was dropped. Over here, 2 months later, it looks like it was fished out of the ocean after 100 years at the bottom of the depths. What causes that? Well, chlorine gas causes that. Chlorine gas causes metal to erode and rust. Chlorine gas, when it comes into contact with moisture, produces a number of acidic substances that erode metal, flesh, a lot of other things. Additionally, the OPCW reports the locations they were allowed into because Syrian forces didn't actually allow OPCW investigators to one of the locations. That's why people talk about locations 2 and 4. They didn't actually let them there. Syrian forces were like, oh yeah, you can't come into this location. The doors are locked. That's not a joke. The Syrian military said that. That's not a joke. Anyway, there's no other explanation for this degree of erosion this quickly. Like, seriously, this is not something that happens naturally. This is about 2 months of erosion. This is insane. And it's consistent with exposure to chlorine gas, in spite of the fact that there was paint over it. Like, painting it will make it take much longer to erode, but it happens anyway. Additionally, other metal at the scene was eroded. Lamps, doorknobs, the little metal bits that hold up lights. Corrosion, not erosion. Sorry, my apologies. Corrosion, not erosion. There was evidence at the scene of substantial corrosion of metal in the area. And there were also chemical residues left on wood at the area that were consistent with the chemical reactions that would take place after exposure to chlorine gas. Additionally, one of the counter-arguments made by people like the dumbfuck that we just had on is that the reason why these trace amounts of chlorine and the chemical byproducts of chlorine were present in the area is because they were produced by bleach cleaning solutions. On the walls, roofs, rubble, infrastructure, piping, scaffolding, very dedicated housekeeping there. Also, there were types of erosion, or corrosion, sorry, that could not take place as a product of bleach. Guys, bleach don't do this. Sorry. Bleach don't do this. It don't. Sorry. So here's what we have so far, okay? We have overwhelming witness reports indicating that helicopters arrived at the scene and that a gas attack took place. Corpses found with symptoms comparable to those of with severe chlorine gas exposure. Additionally, the only counter argument to the suggestion that these corpses died of chlorine gas poisoning was from the minutes of a toxicology interview, which were never published because they were preliminary and they didn't even have full information on the presence of the corpses. The report from the toxicologists was done in the assumption that people wouldn't be in a contained area. However, the actual facts of that bombing were basically like perfectly orchestrated to maximize the death and the casualties in people at lower levels. Again, keep in mind, chlorine gas is heavier than air. The roof being blown out, which the guy we were talking to kept seeming to think was some kind of own, means nothing. Chlorine gas doesn't go up. It goes down. It doesn't go up. It goes down. It hit the roof and the corpses were on the lower level. Additionally, there are videos on the scene of people freaking out, dying. You can see like losing their shit because there's a chlorine gas canister right there. Additionally, here's another nice piece of evidence. Now, the tankies are going to get super triggered because this is from Bellingcat, but I'm only showing it on Bellingcat because the alternative would be to show it in a very, very graphic video that I can't show on Twitch because it shows a lot of bad stuff. So I want to show you 2 photos right here. I'm just taking the photo from Bellingcat, but again, this is verifiable through other sources, you know. Here are 2 pictures right here. Are you looking at it? These are two pictures of the chlorine gas canister. This is the one that didn't break all the way through the roof. This is the one that got lodged partially into the building. The one on the left is a frame from a video taken while people was dying. The one on the right was taken by investigators much later. Note the rubble. Or the rust, my apologies. Now, what do you notice about the one on the left? Is there anything odd about the coloration that you see? Oh, wait. It's white. Now tell me, did you see any white in the images that we were looking at previously? It's a yellow canister. Why is it white here? Well, in this video that was taken, this bomb had only just been dropped. Do you know why it's white? This is frost. This is a process called auto-refrigeration. When highly pressurized gases quickly release from a contained area, the container and the surrounding environment cools down. It's an endothermic reaction. Have you ever had one of those little spray cans, the ones that spray air on your keyboard to clean it up? Notice how they get really, really cold super, super quick? That's called auto-refrigeration. I won't claim to understand the entireties of the chemical reaction there, but it has to do with the pressure inside and stuff like that. So here's a question. Since this frame on the left was taken from a quick frame of a video that was taken right as the bomb hit while people freaking out, if this was a false flag and this was planted, did they spray frost on this canister just so that it could be shown for a couple frames in a video of people dying? This is only visible for like a fraction of a second. Were the false flaggers so fastidious and dedicated that they somehow adhered frost or some other kind of white congealant to the underside right here, specifically so that it can be seen in a shaky phone video for a quarter of a second, and then later somehow remove it? How would they do that exactly? Did they like knock a hole in this building, prop it up there, and then like spray cold on it, and then like what? The evidence here is very consistent with the rapid depressurization of the interior of this canister. Anything else would require an unbelievably contrived number of circumstances to explain. That's the reason why the guy I was talking to was a coward and didn't actually commit to any alternate explanation. If you're arguing with a conspiracy theorist, you need to. You need to ask them, what is the other explanation? Because here's the thing, guys. History is rough, and we don't have perfect information on anything happening anywhere, let alone in fucking Syria. Like, we never have perfect info. There will always be gaps in the narrative, in any narrative. This is the case for the Holocaust, too, in spite of it being literally the most well-understood and recorded historical event, arguably in all of human history. We can't know everything. It's a God of the gaps argument. That's why we have historians, analysts, and experts. We can't ever know everything, but we can fill in pieces and come to a really, really good understanding of what took place. So, if you're going to challenge a standard narrative, this narrative, the one that not the US government, that Assad dropped the chemical weapons here, is a very, very well corroborated, well agreed upon, and well understood one. And the only reason it's contested is because Syria and Russia both like freaked out and lied and said that it didn't happen, and they had a bunch of like conflicting information, and pawns of the Russian government, like the Gray Zone and their dipshits, all repeat their lies for them. So the only reason that this is propagated is because they're essentially repeating state propaganda. Like, that's it. It's not because there's actually some like super serious, like major, like lack of credibility on the nature of this investigation. Why did Russia lie? They want to support the Syrian government. It's a geopolitical interest that they have. Anyway, continuing. It's very important to ask about an alternate explanation they have for the conspiracy that they're alleging, because otherwise you could let anyone tear holes into anything, you know? Like, anyone could tear holes into anything. Well, this one historian said that in 1443, a train manifest in Nazi Germany was inconsistent with the broader narrative that there was a payload of food and supplies that was delivered from Munich over to here. And, anyway, yeah, like, this one guy's pretty credible, and he says that didn't happen, And then you're like, okay, so what are you saying? And they're like, did I say 1443? The 1943. Whatever, 1443, who cares? Anyway, 1943. And then you're like, okay, does that matter? And they're like, well, I don't know. It's kind of crazy, isn't it? Anyway, like, if you disagree with me, then you're like a Jewish shill. Wait, hold on. So wait, Are you alleging that there are inconsistencies in the narrative, or are you alleging that anyone who disagrees with you is like a member of the U.S. State Department? That's the thing that I have with these guys. If they literally just had like a couple questions about the specifics of this event, that I wouldn't have a huge issue with it, but they don't. He was like meek and simpering with me. This is the I'm just asking question things that Holocaust deniers do. But on their own, they make very strong claims. Ever notice this with Holocaust deniers? In their forums, they're like, yeah, bro, Holocaust never happened. Jews faked all of it. Wish it did happen, though. Yup. But when they're talking with other people, they're like, no, 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 no. I don't believe any of that. I just have some questions on these reports. Look at this photo of a door. Does this really look like a door to hold people in gas chambers? And it's just like a photo of a random door. This is what I mean. Like, it's the constant back and forth between very severe and very definitive claims and these weak ones. It's Amat and Bailey, essentially. Anyway, maybe I'm in the total dark of how many people are countering Vaush's position on this. Kyle Kalinske, Glenn Greenwald, the Gray Zone of Aaron Mate and Max Blumenthal, the guy we just talked to, types like that, like Assadist types. Unfortunately, Kyle Kalinske is in line with them, but I don't know. Jimmy Dore, too. Yeah, Jimmy Dore is pretty big on this. Socialist MMA is coping so hard. Oh, yeah, I bet. I hope that guy enjoys the gigantic boost to his career that he gets from, like, being able to talk to me, you know? Yeah, no. Wait, I'm actually getting report. Apparently, like, at some point, he started, like, tampering with the video? Or something like that? Apparently, he, like, delayed the video, like, after I left or something? I wonder if he did that echo on purpose. I have no idea. I think he seemed to have been, like, fucking with it at some point. I'm not really, I'm not entirely sure. Anyway, what was I saying exactly? Forget what I was saying exactly. Oh, yeah, anyway. So basically, the idea that there was some kind of false flag in this situation is completely impossible. Like, so we faked all the witness testimonies. We somehow like planted corpses there with nobody noticing. We faked video footage. We faked the helicopter presence. We faked the damages. We faked everything. Everything was faked, but there's no proof of any of it. The only proof is like there's one independent investigator who disagreed with the OPCW, and like that's it. It's really, really dumb. So, what was the point of faking it? Yeah, the funny thing is that with regards to the point of faking it, like there's not even a point really. The U.S. government already achieved its goals in Syria with regards to the 2018 April 7th bombing of Douma, and they didn't do anything more. Like there's not really much else behind it or to it. I would be really, really suspicious of people who buy into this Assadist nonsense, in large part because, A, I really do think they're like intellectually on the level of Holocaust deniers. Keep in mind, there are people who are going to say that I rage quit that debate. I only did so when he made it incredibly clear he wasn't even talking with me anymore. You noticed that, right? He wasn't even talking to me anymore. What's the point of having a conversation past that point? Like, there's no, like, what? This is one of the tactics that alt-writers like to use as well. When they realize they're losing a debate, they act so insufferably that you no longer see any point in continuing to talk with them, and then they act like you walking away is some kind of loss. The fact that I like mentioned a video that took place at the site, and then he was like, "You claimed there was a video of the bomb being dropped on the building," when I literally never said that. Did I ever say that? I'm really confident that I never said that. I do not think I ever said that. But he was like so insistent that I said that. And then he kept trying to go to the white helmets thing because he had his prepared talking points on that, you know. Another like indication of that guy's dishonesty is like the fact that he kept saying engineering experts or ballistics experts said this or that, but he kept referring to the same guy. He was talking about the same guy every time. One guy, you know what I mean? Like, he was so clearly trying to inflate the number of people who agreed with his perspective by not actually mentioning the name specifically, you know? And he didn't know what peer review meant. Yeah. Maybe you should have a language check for debate prerequisites in the future. No, no, no. I knew it was going to be like that. Why do you guys think I stayed up so late, like, looking up arguments last night? Conspiracy theorists are incredibly exhausting to talk to. You know? Like it's always going to be like that. They're basically just neo-Nazis in terms of the way they deal with the world and the way they regard like empiricism and factual information. That's basically what they are. And that's basically what they give, you know? Jackson fans are trying to dislike bomb the stream and failing. Yeah, another thing they do is they brigade like crazy. This is, by the way, this is something that I'm a little bit proud of. I have disagreements with plenty of other communities. You know what happens when my community has a disagreement with another community? You guys go in there and you're like, Vaush bad, Vaush bad, Vaush bad. When other people have a disagreement with me, they brigade and they're like, you're a fat fucking pedophile, Vaush, you fucking piece of shit, you fucking Jew. That's normally what I get, okay? They really act like indistinguishably from alt-righters. I'm happy, though, that all of these types were watching because I want to experience the cope in the years to come, okay? That guy couldn't answer a single fucking thing. He was repeatedly caught out on lies and misinformation, and he had no alternate explanation for anything that he presented. He was also walking back earlier claims. He was saying here, like, I just want there to be an investigation, but no. When you're so anti-American that you start defending people who do worse shit to their population than America. Yeah, peer review is when you have people who look at it. God. Are you saying we should do the same? No, no, no. I like that you guys are chill. I don't like thinking he did the echo himself, but the idea that you were faking it exemplified as conspiratorial thinking. So this is what I mean about broken brains, okay? When I said that there was an echo on my end, he said I was faking it. I'm live streaming. There's a huge audience of people watching me. How could I possibly get away with... Your fans are watching it too. How could I get away with faking it? But that's like tendency towards conspiracy. He doesn't actually believe anything. He'll just throw out any counter-argument that he can think of to buy time. Conspiracy theorists often don't actually believe in all the arguments they make. I enjoyed the research stream last night. Literally any subject would work for me. I like doing it with conspiracy stuff, you know? Vaush, you made some good points, but the schizophrenia thing was kind of a low blow. Yeah, I guess. I'm sorry. I get a little ableist when I'm talking to people like that, but this is something that I've always struggled with. I'm not the best at understanding other people's mindsets. I don't know if it's like an autism thing or whatever, but when people are that far gone, I genuinely don't know what to do other than like completely mentally write them off, like as a crazy person. It's all I can really think of. Like with people like that, like I know it's ableist. I know. It's just like I don't even know. Yeah, we do a little ableism. But does anyone have an alternate explanation? I could never imagine being like that. I don't know. I place a lot of value on like the belief that I'm not some kind of crazy ideologue. Like I know that I have my biases. I'm not pretending that I don't, but I don't think that I'm so unbelievably lost that I could never even that I could like he couldn't even have a conversation with me. I don't know. God. Well. American derangement syndrome. Yeah. Yeah, but it is deliberate. That's very important to remember. Nobody acts like that, like accidentally, you know? This is a very deliberate effort to be that dishonest. It's pretty cringe. Ratio socialism MMA. I already ratioed socialism MMA with my first debate. He got ratioed so unbelievably hard. I just really quickly took a look at Jackson Hinkle's debate, and the first comment in his YouTube video that I saw was, Caleb Maupin has a good new book, BreadTube Serves Imperialism, that discusses other bad Vaush takes. That was literally the very first comment that I saw. That's incredible. He's found his crowd. Actually, this is the crowd that he would find, right? Because Caleb Maupin is a Russian state agent. Literally, he's paid by the Russian government. He works for RT, doesn't he? Do you think it's important to address these people as a way to push back against the whole Nazbol vortex? Yeah, I do think so. These people are fascists. Jackson Hinkle, the gray zone types, they're fascists. But the thing is, their style of fascism is a little bit more intelligent than like your average dumbfuck, like skinhead, like American white nationalist. What they do is they fall in line with the Russian model. You might notice if you watch Russia Today that there's a lot of info that's pushed on there, but there's basically one like cohesive narrative, and the narrative is destabilization. The broader goal of Russia Today and of the Russian government is to destabilize Western democracies and to lessen people's faith in their government, you know? So people like, Putin, it's not just like, oh yeah, Trump is good, rah, rah. It's more like, I'm going to use the intelligence apparatuses of my country to try and disseminate contradictory propaganda to exacerbate internal contradictions. It's very intelligent. There are plenty of documents out there that credit Russia for an incredibly intelligent approach to cyber warfare that they engage in, Credit where credit's due. Anyway, for these fascists, the one that we're arguing with right now, their brand of fascism isn't to advocate for fascist-like policy. Their brand of fascism is to defend foreign fascists, to delegitimize any alternative to those systems, to claim to be on the left, but to attack everyone actually pushing towards the left, which is why they've turned on AOC, Ilhan Omar, Bernie Sanders, the DSA, everybody else. They've turned on every actual way of pushing for the left, but then they praise people like Tucker Carlson. Then they praise people like Assad. Then they say that the actual metric for being a left-leaning person is anti-imperialism, which means basically uncritical support of far-right dictators, as long as they're far-right dictators that America doesn't get along with. They'll destroy and sow division inside of all real legitimate left-leaning movements in this country, paving the way for fascism. That's their goal. Rather than advocating for fascism from fascism's side, they're like viruses who spread within the left and do what they can to tear it apart from the inside. Vaush, that's a lot of inference. No, I think it's a pretty clear strategy, dude. What else are you getting from people like Jimmy Dore and Glenn Greenwald? Like, they're on the left, but they attack everyone on the left, buddy up with people on the right, defend far-right regimes around the world, and spend simultaneously, they critique other left-leaning people for myopic infighting, but that's all they do. Jimmy Dore critiques left-leaning people for myopic infighting, but that's all he does. Same with all these types. Dore regularly goes on Tucker Carlson to agree with him and not push back. Glenn Greenwald called Tucker Carlson a socialist. Vaush, you did give him a lot of clout points, though, IMO, by getting upset and making statements you had to walk back, at least the one. The one statement, I didn't even think I walked it back. I think there was one where I briefly made a mistake by mixing up Inspector A and Inspector B, which, I immediately was like, oh, I mixed them up, my bad. Okay, that's not really walking back anything. And the other one was, I said, the Ian Henderson report affirmed the presence of chemical weapons, but then more specifically, I clarified and said it wasn't really dealing with the existence of chemical weapons, only its deployment. The inference from the Ian Henderson report was still the presence of a chemical weapons attack because it was kind of implicating the Syrian rebel forces. This is a very minute correction. He fixated on it super hard because he made some insanely stupid statements that he wanted to pull attention away from. Also, did I come off that angry? I feel like I mostly came off exasperated, but there's only so much I can do, man. There are limits. Comments on the Twitter poster saying you ran away and rage quitted the debate, lol. Yeah, that's what they always do, dude. They get into a debate, they realize they're losing, so they freak out super fucking hard. They stop engaging in the conversation, and at that point, they basically just want to use my larger platform as a speaking post, so they can ramble for as long as they want without any kind of pushback. I'll ask a question or make a counter argument, and they won't say anything in response because they don't have to. He just starts rambling. He wasn't even responding to any of the claims that I made, Yeah, Mike from PA said the same thing. Nazi said the same. It's always the same with these people. Always, always, always. If he checked out of the conversation, he's the one who actually rage quit. He was clearly angry and clearly not willing to engage.